to the cloud.
Okay, we can see me. We can see my screen. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Chat. Okay, so welcome. Thank you, everyone. That was such a phenomenal presentation from Sean. I learned so much. I've been really thankful to be able to hop on as an attendee this week and last week. Dr. Becca is just always has such phenomenal content to disseminate to us. So any opportunity to do anything with you, I certainly want to hop on it. So thank you for sticking around. I know it's getting a little bit late, but I'm going to keep it light and fun. That's pretty much what I do all day, every day anyway, is play with kids and make that a job for myself. So here we go. All right, so I am Ashley Rose. I put a couple of things about myself here to kind of show you the life's journey, if you will. Everything has been related or has involved kids in some way. So I am the oldest sibling. I'm 10 years older than my youngest brother. So I was, built-in babysitter from day one. My first job was birthday party hostess at some ceramics painting place, which I loved. I then took a job as a paraprofessional in a self-contained autism classroom, which was actually set up as a verbal behavior classroom. So this was like 2002, 2003. So that was pretty ahead of the game back then. So that was a great opportunity to start with. I then worked as what we would call an RBT now, but this was before RBT was a thing. So I was working in home, going house to house, primarily working with little ones like preschoolers. And I had an awesome opportunity to go and do some training at the Carbone Clinic around that time. So my focus from the very beginning has really been on verbal behavior, natural environment teaching, and then continue to grow from there. I've taught preschool. I was an inclusion pre-K teacher, turned district behavior specialist. Within that role, it really challenged me because the agency or company that hired me, I guess, saw a skill set in me that I did not yet know that I had or probably didn't have. And they started placing me in some settings that I had never been in before. And one of those was an ED, BD middle school program in a pretty rough neighborhood, and I loved it. And the other was setting up an alternative high school program. So for all of the kids who were kicked out of the regular high school, the district was trying to bring them back, and they weren't ready to go back into the mainstream, if you will. They needed an alternative program set up. So that was pretty cool. It gave me some well-rounded experience. I did in New Jersey for early intervention. I was called a developmental interventionist, so I had some experience with that. And then I spent about 5 years doing a lot of crisis work, working with families who were considered to be in crisis. They had older teens or young adult children who were engaging in really significant behaviors. So self-injury, aggression, property destruction. So that became my gig for quite a while, which again, really stretched my skill set. But I would say that experience with that specific population really probably shaped me the most in terms of who I have become as a provider, as a practitioner, and what I have built as a result. When you go into a setting with a 30-year-old man who is much larger than you are, who has perfected the punch, it's been very effective for them for a number of years, you got to come in slow and steady. So I learned very quickly the importance of building relationships, treating others with respect and dignity. I always did that, but even more so careful about that now. And then I've done some work as a teacher trainer, just to give you some background. In 2013, I went out on my own. I left a comfortable position in school consultation, teacher training, family coaching, And I thought, hey, I want to give this a go and see if I can teach skills in a group setting and really focus on and prioritize play skills and social skills. And I did not really have a model to go off of. This didn't really exist. So I was winging it, but winging it in a conceptually systematic way, if you will. So in our current program, we run developmental play groups. We run a kindergarten transition group. So it's a play-based group getting ready to transition into a more formal social group. We run adolescent social groups. We serve teens. And our most recent addition was a young adult group. And this was formed after an individual reached out to us during the pandemic and said, hey, I follow you on social media. I love what you're doing with the younger kids. You know, I'm an autistic adult who's really struggling. Do you have something for me? And I thought, well, I have an instructor who would be phenomenal for this group. I have all the resources. We just don't have the participants, but, you know, get some people together, spread the word if you have some friends. And it's grown into something that I think is just pretty beautiful. So it's great to see a group of young adults coming to group each week, sharing some of the challenges or struggles that they're having in relationships or in the workforce, and then seeing a facilitator help to guide the development of strategies and the check-in from week to week. So really proud to be able to serve such a diverse population. We do have a lot of participants with an autism diagnosis, but I serve a lot of kids with ADHD. I went through school undiagnosed ADHD, not diagnosed until I was in my 30s. So now I'm serving a bunch of mini-me's, and I really enjoy that. Okay, so how about you? I told you all about me. How about you? So pop into the chat. Just give me an idea of what population you're working with, what setting you're in. So are you home-based? Do you have little ones? Do you have the big guys? I'm going to use that to make some data-driven decisions about what I focus on. Home-based with the littles. Pre-K intensive early learner, alternative education school. Cool. Clinic-based, see lots of littles. Del Mar, home-based. 2 years to 5 years. Good. Oh, I love to see I'm loving it. Okay. All right, so I'm from New Jersey, so I pulled this. It's game time. I don't know if anybody watched that double shot at love. Maybe I shouldn't admit that in a recorded video, but I planned a little game for us. If you have a piece of paper, that's great. It's just a fun activity to show a hidden message, which is going to guide our next topic. So if you have a piece of paper, great, but you can also potentially use your phone. All right, so on your right, you can see there's a code. I made it extra hard by not putting the alphabet on it, so you have to do a couple more steps. And our goal here is to decode the secret message, and that's going to reveal our topic that we're going to move into. And this is an activity that a lot of our groups like to do. I usually give them the letters though, and it reveals maybe one of the new skills we're going to work on. Just a fun lead-in or a priming type activity. So I'll keep an eye on the chat if you think you can solve it. Oh, hi, Melissa in New Jersey. I checked and rechecked the code and I'm still panicked that I put something in wrong. You know, it's that ADHD careless mistake thing we have going on. So hopefully we'll be able to solve it. Oh yes, I'm always trying new things. I'm totally prepared for it to fail. No problem. It's a part of life, right? And that's exactly what happens in our groups too. You know, we're constantly planning activities that we think are going to be such a hit, and sometimes they are. We knock it out of the park, and sometimes it bombs, and that's okay. It's all information, right? We do more of what works, and we figure out why something didn't work, and we changed it. Yeah, so we got reciprocal. Second part, reinforce, longer word. Reciprocal reinforcement. We got it. Thanks, Miller started off, and we got Amanda. Reciprocal reinforcement. So that's what we're going to start to talk about now. All right, so first let's think what we know about reinforcement. So let's see if we can fill in the blank in the chats. When a reinforcer follows a behavior, there is a blank in the likelihood of a behavior occurring again. What's going in that blank? Yep, an increase. So if a target behavior gets reinforced, yeah, I see stronger, it's going to get stronger, it's going to increase. We're going to see more of it. This is how skills are acquired and why things are maintained. When we look at the second part, relationship, let's specifically focus on I called it a teaching relationship. So in your teaching relationship, who is involved? So it's going to be you and who else? Okay, so an RBT, yep, RBT and client, staff and client, instructor and learner. Okay, so that's your teaching relationship there. So what are some learner behaviors that we may be targeting for increase? Just drop me an example of some things you're currently working on. Right, we want to see more pee-pee on the potty. Requesting, raising hand as a replacement behavior for calling out. Oh, I like joke telling. So I wonder if that's a target behavior for increase because there's currently some maybe other attention seeking behavior going on that's problematic. So potentially peer attention is reinforcing or attention in general. Good. So working on increasing how to gain the attention of others. All right. So reducing the self-injurious behavior, potentially you're increasing a replacement instead. Okay. So in order for our learners to acquire those skills, we have to teach them, and then the behavior occurs and it has to contact reinforcement. That's how it's going to increase. All right, now what about us as the instructors or as the techs? What are some target behaviors that we would look to increase, some target tech behaviors for increase? Think about your sessions. What are some responsibilities? Okay, consistency. So that could be consistency in attendance. It could be consistency in your data collection, consistency in error correction procedures, good reinforcement delivery, trial counts, engagement. Okay, so in this session, we're reinforcing client behavior, right? Pro-social behaviors that we want to see more of. How does our behavior change? As instructors, how does our behavior change? If it's something like, say engagement, we're gonna have to further define that, but when would we be more likely to be engaged? Let's start there. So you're in session with your learner. Think about the times you are most engaged. Okay, when we're motivated, what motivates you? What gets you really jazzed in your session? Being creative. So valuing maybe having some autonomy in the ideas that you come up with, or maybe how things are presented. That's a big one for me. I definitely like a lot of autonomy. What about learner behavior? So when our kids do really well with something, or they say that first word, or they engage in that skill for the very first time, could that be reinforcing? Could that reinforce our instructional behavior? Absolutely, right? That gets me so pumped. So this work is hard, right? We're tired. There's some really rough days, but we do it and we keep showing up because there's a lot of great stuff. The hard work pays off. So when you're consistent with those strategies and you have a really comprehensive plan and you're following through with it, and you see that first day with no self-injurious behavior, or the first time that child requested to use the bathroom, oh man, what a valuable reinforcer. So that increases the likelihood that I'm going to engage in those instructional behaviors again. What happens if we don't see that progress from our learners? Could that have an effect, an impact on our instructional behaviors? Yeah, could we start to maybe feel a little bit defeated? Oh, I like that we start to lose some buy-in, we start to get burnt out, tedious. Yep. So you're showing up, you're going through the motions, and nothing's happening. Very monotonous. Could you potentially start to check out at that point? And maybe you're bringing your C game or your D game. You start to call out more often, maybe, right? It makes sense when we look at it scientifically, right? If we look at it from, thinking about the science of behavior, if our instructional behaviors are not contacting reinforcement, we're not going to see an increase. We're not going to see us continuing to do the same things. Yep. And especially if we're struggling and we're not maybe getting the support or the answers, if we have a supervisor, we need to make sure that we can go to them and say, hey, I'm really struggling here. We're not seeing the progress, really breaking down what potentially could be going on and actionable steps that can be taken. So when you feel like you can take action, it's almost a renewed sense of, okay, let me try this and see what happens, rather than getting stuck in the mud, doing the same thing over and over again, which hasn't been effective. Okay, so when we talk about reciprocal reinforcement, what are some sources of reinforcement for our kids? Give me an idea of what some of their reinforcers are. Tablet, of course, number one, right? Attention, social engagement. I love to see that. Thank you. Music, breaks, going outside, time alone, tickles. So lots of variation there, right? Reinforcers are highly individualized. What functions as a reinforcer for one person doesn't necessarily function as a reinforcer for another person. Okay. So we want to make sure that we also, as the instructors, have sources of reinforcement within our sessions. We need to make sure that our instructional behavior, our efforts to engage that learner, are reinforced. Does anybody currently work on or has worked on facilitating the development of a play skills repertoire? So you have a client who, okay, I see Miller's, yep, this is a tough one. And I don't see play happening as often as I would like. I think we should be playing a large majority of the time, especially with our younger children. Why do you suspect that people maybe shy away from focusing on play or start gung-ho and fizzle out? They forgot to be kids. So play could be really, really hard for adults, scared to look silly in front of others. Amanda, I'm so glad you said that. So I run our center, I supervise the staff. We do working interviews, and I throw the newbies right in, and I tell them off the bat, the weirder, the better. You gotta just let that freak flag fly, let it go and have fun. That's what we're looking for. But I know how potentially awkward and uncomfortable that could be to do in front of someone that you don't know well and another adult. So I think that certainly could be something at play. I saw there, yeah. So adults forget how to play. So potentially sit and try to engage with a child at too high a level. So I don't know about you, but if I think about some play memories, a lot of it is very related to pretend play, imaginative play, cooperative play with my siblings. That's a much higher level of play. That's way beyond like cause and effect, exploratory type stuff, where a lot of our learners might be coming in at. So if we are trying to engage with one of our littles at too high a level, is it going to be fun for them? No, it won't be fun, right? So if they're at like they're early learner, they do not have a developed play skills repertoire yet, so they're not playing with anything functionally, probably a lot of stimming going on. That's how they're filling their time. And then you come over and try to do a whole pretend skit with characters because maybe that's something you remember doing as a child. Now your client is not attending, right? They're not attending to you. They're not even looking at you. You know, that piece of fuzz on the floor across the room is of more reinforcing value than you are. That starts to kind of hurt the ego a little bit. And we can only use the skills and tools we have. So if you're sitting on the floor with this child and you're trying everything you can do to engage them and have a good time and they can't be bothered, are you more or less likely to continue to try to play with them? They're not attending to you. They're not engaging. You don't have that back and forth, less likely. So over time, you start to shift back to the table, do this, copy me, find car, because it's a much more controlled setting. You have the plan. I'm going to do this. They're going to do that. I'm going to do this in response. I'm going to mark down my data. Oh, wow, they acquired a new tact. They acquired new motor imitation. We're making progress. And what did we say about that? When the learner's making progress, that reinforces our instructional behavior. So now, are we more likely or less likely to stay at the table doing structured tasks? Yep, more likely. So that learner behavior shaped our behavior, right? So if we are not contacting reinforcement, we're not going to keep doing it. But here's the thing. It's a missing skill set. Play is so, so, so important. Every child, I firmly believe, every child needs to play. And that doesn't mean that we need to teach them to play with potato head, or that every child needs to like car ramps, or every child needs to like blocks. No, we need to expose them to a wide variety of things and see what they like. And build a leisure skill or play skills repertoire that they can freely access those activities, engage with them how they please, and they're contacting a lot of automatic reinforcement for that engagement. We can then move to more social levels of play. So once you add in another person, now look at all those opportunities for imitating actions in a more natural context, making and responding to requests from play partners, problem solving. There's always conflict when you have 2 or more kids playing together. So having a play skills repertoire sets such a strong foundation for scaffolding to higher level, more nuanced social behaviors or interpersonal skills in a much more natural way. A child who doesn't have a play skills repertoire ends up being far more likely to be taught in highly restricted, repetitive, and rote ways. Think about a neurotypical 4-year-old. Through play, there are so many skills that are happening. They're sorting, they're counting, they're potentially measuring, so many things going on. And for a lot of our kids, we miss those opportunities because the development of that play skills repertoire hasn't been emphasized. Cassandra, if you want to reach out to me afterwards, so there's a question in the chat. It says, there's a child who enjoys strings, does not play with toys. What suggestions? So what I really suggest is a lot of observation to understand that learner's sensory profile. So when a child is not observed to be playing with toys in a functional, and I don't love saying functional about play because play should be a little bit more free, but playing with items in the way we would maybe expect, then it's likely that they're engaging in a lot of self-stimulatory behavior. So understanding what type of sensory stimuli they're seeking, what's so reinforcing about that string, and then start to brainstorm some ideas of how you could expand upon that or find some other similar type activities to draw them in. It's a tiny baby step process, but we have broken it down, and I'm more than happy to share that, share that table or those forms with anybody who would like to reach out. Okay. So we talked a little bit about this, right? So what gets you excited about work? So we said that when our kids make progress, we're like, yeah, I'm going to do more of that. So just drop in the chat for me some favorite moments or experiences, things that have just, I keep using the word jazzed lately, but that just get you, really jazzed about doing what you do. All right, so a child who learns a new sign, the belly laughs. Yes, yes. It's like, how does your soul feel so warm, right? When you get the whole shaking body belly laugh. Yes, first man. So just being able to communicate their wants and needs, engaging in new activities. Yes. Oh, okay. So the example there was child looked at the camera for the first time, I think, to take a photo. It's such a big deal for parents. Yes, when your kid seeks you out or starts to look for you, you know that you have paired yourself with reinforcement. You're bringing the good stuff. Their life improves when you're there. Yeah, all the snuggles and the cuddles. Yeah, any emergence of new skills, seeing kids engage with peers independently, awesome. So those are some of the big ones for me too, being that we're so play-based and social skills based. When I see that my kid who came in on week 1 and was just, looked so uncomfortable in the setting, or was engaging in a high rate of just self-regulatory behaviors, afraid to even, or so uncomfortable to even come into the room, and to see them, just a few weeks later, comfortably moving around the room, approaching activities, accepting offered items. I mean, it just really such a renewed sense of like purpose and excitement, and it keeps you going. Oh, that's funny. So using puppets, kids talk to puppets and love it. They become best friends. I love that. So I think it's so important to stay in the moment and be really truly present um, for these things and take the joy in it and try to replicate more and more of that. Not everything is going to be so fun and easy all the time. We're working on some difficult skills, working with some challenging behaviors, but this is the good stuff. This is the stuff that keeps us going and reminds us that there is light at the end of this tunnel. But really, it's just enjoy them, right? They're little humans, they're kids. Have a good time with them. All right, so let's summarize some key points before we move forward. So always, always, always be a human, right? You're a human. You're going into the homes of other humans. You're supporting a little human. Be natural, right? And sometimes I think this comes with time and experience. When you're just starting out and you're in the beginning stages of your training, it can be very overwhelming. You're trying to make sure that you're clinically strong and you're running the program, as written, and you're collecting the data correctly in the behavior plan. And did you mark this down? So it's difficult to also remember to be human and be natural and be present in those moments. But I'm telling you, it makes a difference. Oh, I love the be authentic. Be authentic. Let's add that one there. Okay. It really does make a difference and allows you to stay connected. I'll use authentic. Be connected and stay connected with your learners and their families in authentic ways. We commented on this one, be the reinforcer. So in the chat, there was a comment. I love when the client comes to look for me. And one of my just absolute favorite things when we have our COVID procedures for running group, all the kids do curbside drop off. So parents pull right up, and to see these littles jump out of the car and come running in, down the hallway, around the corner, into the playroom. I mean, it's just, that's the most important data. That's like my data for the day. I have 24 out of 24 kids that day ran in. And that's really exciting. And that gives, not only is it like the warm and fuzzy, the feel goods, but it gives information that tells us that the environment is paired with reinforcement. We've done a decent job of pairing peers with reinforcement. We've paired ourselves with reinforcement. So you want to be careful that you're not becoming a vending machine, but that your social interaction, engagement, and presence is of reinforcing value. Okay. Has anybody heard that analogy before about the vending machine? So we hear about you want to be the deliverer of good things. Like, yes and no. I'm not looking to be the toy store. I'm looking to be like human to human reciprocal interaction with you. It's not just I show up and I hand you the iPad or I hand you a favorite snack, and I'm not a fan of food reinforcers. I'm just using an example. That's not what we're looking for. We really want to truly pair ourselves as with reinforcement, be the reinforcer. And this matters because when our attention becomes a conditioned reinforcer or our presence, the kids are so much more likely to do things with us, to try new things. By focusing on this, our staff can sit on the floor and take out anything. I mean, anything. And the kids are going to come running to see what it is. Not because it's so much about the activity, but it's, oh, they're doing that. I always have fun when I'm with them doing whatever they're doing. And because we have that, there's so much more flexibility in the activities that we can introduce, less problem behavior during transitions. You're just going to get a lot more buy-in from the learners. If you think about it, you're embedding that reinforcement within all the activities just because you're there. So it really, really makes a difference. I touched on understanding sensory needs and profile a little bit earlier, but we need to work hard at honing our skills to learn that we don't interact with all of our learners in the same way. So we're going to have that learner that loves the tickles and the rough and tumble play. They're a proprioceptive seeker, right? So that proprioceptive input is really reinforcing to them. It feels great. So we give them those tight hugs, or we bounce them or jump them really hard. But another learner may find that very aversive and avoid that. So if you go by the response of child A, oh, they laugh, they love that. And you interpret that as like, all kids love this, they love jumping. And you try with child B, and you have a response that potentially they're crying or they try to push you away. You're not bad at your job. You just need a little bit more practice in understanding how reinforcers or interactions need to be highly individualized. And I really suggest learning or gathering the information to support your decision-making and how you're going to interact by observing. Observe what that child does when there's no demands in place. Are they spinning around in a circle? Are they running and slamming into walls? Are they listening to music? Are they looking at books, puzzles, whatever it might be? That tells you what they like. Tells you what their interests and preferences are, and it tells you how they're currently contacting reinforcement in the environment. So pull that and you become that in some way. Okay, so we talked about the behaviors information. So if you try to interact with a child and you miss the mark, and it happens, it's totally normal. Take that as information and then you make the change. It's not personal. That is okay that you made a mistake there. Just take a step back and then reapproach in a different way. So we're consistently changing our behavior based upon learner behavior. So when we see that they are, I'm going to borrow Dr. Hanley's words, happy, relaxed, and engaged, we want more of that. When we see that there is a higher rate of escape avoidance behavior or signs of distress, less of that, right? We want to magnify the conditions or situations which are most conducive to learning, making sure that our kids are motivated, they're attending, and they're contacting enough reinforcement, and they're in settings which are comfortable for them, and we are interacting in a way that's comfortable for them. And the last one here is just to value and prioritize fun and positive reciprocal interactions. If you feel like you're just going through the motions of something and it's very repetitive and monotonous, I can imagine how it feels on the side of the learner. And most likely, they're not equipped with the skills to communicate that to you. So if they're not contacting enough reinforcement, the response efforts off, they're going to be less engaged, they're going to be less motivated, and then you kind of start to get stuck in the mud. You've lost momentum. So have a good time. It is okay to let loose and have fun. It doesn't dilute the clinical value of the service you're providing. If anything, I think it makes you much better. And we need that, right? We need that fun and enjoyment to keep us going. Yep, we need to stay in that HRE, right? Happy, relaxed, and engaged clients, happy, relaxed, and engaged instructors. All right, so we're all about increasing that engagement, the enjoyment, the interaction, the participation for your learners, but also for yourself. I've observed quite a few sessions where I've seen the monotonous go through the motions, and I don't think anybody says I'm going to show up to work today and be a dud. I think that people use the skills they have, they do what they know how to do. And if a behavior hasn't contacted reinforcement, it probably wasn't acquired and it's not going to be used. So when we see that, we want to come from an angle first of support and skill building. Okay. So if you're struggling with that, if you're sitting here and listening and thinking, I feel like that a lot in my sessions. I show up, I feel bored, it feels monotonous. Talk to someone about that, because you want to make a change. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck there. And I have absolutely been in those situations, and I've been in those situations where I wasn't in charge of what we were doing, and I felt stuck quite a few times. So share that with your supervisor, and talk about clear action plans. Something has to change to increase your engagement, enjoyment, interaction, participation, as well as on the part of your learner. Okay, so let's do some application examples. So as RBTs, you have programs that you are responsible for running in a specified way, and they need to be run the way that they are written consistently so that data-driven decisions can be made. If your supervisor looks, the BCBA looks and says, okay, this learner is not making progress, then changes need to be made, whether it's to the materials or to the SD, whatever it might be. If there's inconsistencies, that's going to result in challenges and confusion about what is and isn't working. So I want to be very clear that I am not suggesting to you that you go into work tomorrow and just start doing like whatever because it's more fun. What you can do is you run your trials as they are prescribed, but you can also do some other things to try to pair the materials with reinforcement to try to make them a little bit more exciting to engage with. And that could be you're sitting during a manding session, whatever it might be, and you can talk to your BCBA about that and see if they have a plan for that. But the activities that I want to talk about here, I just pulled something I thought might be a pretty decent representation of some target skills you may be working on or have worked on. So on the left, it's blocks, building a block tower. We have the single inset farm puzzle. We have the flashcards. You can use that for your listener responding, maybe feature function class, your tacting, pictures, and then I have some laundry stuff on the side, so folding laundry. So give me an example of what a goal, I think I have its own slide. Give me an example of what a goal for blocks would be. So learner will. Okay, so learner's going to stack the blocks. Pretty straightforward. So let's say, learner will stack a 10 block tower. Okay. So what we want to talk about now is how we can get some reciprocity, back and forth engagement with this activity. So you have the goal. We're going to put that aside for a second, and we're just going to stretch our minds a little bit, get our creative juices flowing. What could you do with these blocks? Okay, they could request. So when would doing a manding session with the blocks be effective? Like, in what conditions would that work? They'd have to be, yes, okay, perfect. So they have to be interested. They have to be motivated to build the block tower, right? We don't want to prompt our learners to request for things that they don't want. Then they're really just labeling it. So we have the blocks out, we're holding them, they're building a tower, and maybe you're showing some choices. Okay, so that's requesting. How can we jazz it up even more? Okay, they could request more blocks. Let's shake it up a little more, get a little more exciting. Stack the red blocks. All right, we're good. So knocking them down. Okay. Counting our colors. Okay, so what I'm seeing in the comments is very like structured skills. Build block towers, request more, count them, label the colors. What I'm looking for is engagement and interaction and reciprocity. Block on your, there you go, block on your head. Let's race. This is actually a car. Crash, ready, set, go. Over here, over here. Oh no, it's off the table. Go get it. You can shake it up as much as you need to or as little. the whole goal is to keep the learner engaged. So making zoo, that's pretend, right? So maybe the learner likes little figurine animals, right? That's something that's, of reinforcing value to them. It's a preferred item or activity. So that's already preferred. If we now associate the blocks with that in some way, we can pair the two things. Now maybe blocks become a little bit more valuable. Flying an airplane. Yep. So be silly. What we're looking for is the back and forth. There's two humans in this interaction. What we don't want to see all the time is one human telling another human what to do, or interviewing. What is this? What color is this? How many? And even using a fun voice, it's still very unbalanced with the adult providing all of the structure. So let's give that learner a chance to reciprocate. So in summary, things like putting it on your head, whoa, 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 knocking it down. If that's of interest, that learner might pick that block up and put it back on your head, or they might put it on their own head. Look at that. You got some spontaneous imitation. You have your interverbal fill-ins. Ready, set, go. You knock it down. Or 1, 2, really exaggerated expression, drawing their attention to your face. Now you're conditioning your face as a reinforcer. Important information is found there. Very natural way to work on orienting toward a play or conversational partner. Okay. So these are all great ways to pair the activity with more reinforcement, also yourself, and then really expanding that play and leisure skills repertoire. Okay. So do you see the difference in how we started off? Tacting colors, size, more or less, versus, whoa, watch out, initiating bids for joint attention. Can you see that? Okay, so I see that, right? If the BCBA will go for that, they want it their way. So that's why I'm careful to say, look, if I was in charge of the world, I would say this is what everyone's program would look like, but I'm not. So you can still run your typical programs with high treatment fidelity, right? You can still run them. We can have breaks in between, right? Do we not play a little bit in between, or how you have some of those manding sessions? So rather than sitting with a basket of blocks and handing them a tower and sitting there and going block, good, asking for block, red or green, green. I mean, you could still run a manding session, but maybe they're requesting some different things, right? So don't get me in trouble. But I am wanting to give permission to have some fun. Okay, how about puzzle? So talk to me about a current goal. So if you were taking it right out of the book, learner will. All right, so let's say we have a 9-piece puzzle. We have 3 of the pieces out, and the goal is for them to complete it. So they're putting 3 pieces in a single inset puzzle. Put the animal in the correct place. I see some interverbal stuff there, some listener responding. So which one says moo? So there are a ton of skills, and I think that's a value as well. That's a pretty fun activity I like to do. Tells you what a nerd I am. This is like what I like to do on a Friday night, is pull like a toy or materials out of the storage room and see how many skills you can teach with it. I think it's fun. It's a great way to stretch your skill set. So definitely completing a puzzle, the listener responding, find horse, find cow, find duck. Which one says woof, woof, woof? Can you find the animal that's pink? Which one says cock-a-doodle-doo? Whatever it might be. All right, ready? We're going to jazz it up and shake it up a little bit. Give me some other fun. Let's make the goal completing the puzzle. We'll stick with that same goal. They're going to complete the puzzle. How can you make this a little bit more exciting? Yeah, the animals can run. Singing Old MacDonald, you're making animal sounds. Animals can parade. See, we got some creative juices here. What about the placement of the the pieces? Could you change where the learner retrieves the pieces from? So instead of having them organized and spread out on the table, what else could you do? Scavenger hunt. Yeah. What if the animals were spread around the room? And again, understanding what, that child's skill level is. If you have a learner who's really not scanning the environment, that's going to be a little bit more difficult for them. But at the same time, I will also say, sometimes you will be surprised. Oftentimes I'll set up an activity and then I just start to do it. So I might run around, oh, I found the cow, there it is. And if I know that child likes tickles, I now have the cow and I'm like, oh, tickle, 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 moo, 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 right? So I'm engaging in some action with that puzzle piece. I know that action is a reinforcer. Now they're more motivated to interact with the cow. I maybe do it 1 or 2 more times. Oh, dog, woof, 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 tickle, 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 tickle. Now that learner's motivated for that type of interaction to continue. Now your disinterested learner who couldn't scan the environment is now so motivated for that interaction to continue that they are. And they're bringing you the next piece or they're wanting you to do the tickles. So you think about what you know about that learner and embed those reinforcers. You have a learner who likes music, you sing that Old MacDonald song. You like a learner who just makes funny, likes funny sounds, you make funny sounds with that puzzle. A learner who's like the crash and bang kind of one, you run those animals into the wall or into the table. So embedding those interests and preferences within the activity increases learner engagement and motivation to participate. Okay, is this making sense? Everybody feel okay with this? Okay, so one more here. We've got some flashcards. So give me some goals of what's currently being done with the good old flashcards. Phonics, okay, that's a pretty advanced one. Receptive ID, tacting. Yeah, okay. So let's do just a basic tacting program. So I'm gonna pick up the card, there's Apple there. I'm gonna pick up the card. It's learner says apple. Okay, so we know that the behavior has to contact reinforcement in order to increase the likelihood it occurs again. So we want to reinforce that correct tact. So I say, what is it? Learner says apple. What are some ways, what are some examples of what reinforcement could be? Did I make that clear? So I hold up the picture. I say, what is it? Learner says apple, correct independent response. I want to reinforce that. What could reinforcement look like? Oh, Amanda. Yep. So yeah, apple. Apples are delicious. Okay. If the learner likes that kind of stuff, I'd still say do it anyway, and just see if you get even they like orient toward you. Definitely if you get a laugh back, by all means, yes. The other thing, I don't know if you've ever seen, so Mary Barbera has, it's like called the shoebox task. And it's something so simple and basic, but when I've done it, the kids really enjoy it. So they label the picture and then it goes in the box. But the act of putting in the box, can function as a reinforcer for some kids. If they like animals, so what is it? Apple. Ooh, it is an apple. Do you want to have some? Oh, and then maybe you have the farm animal puzzle. Oh, wow. Thank you, Dr. Becca. So then maybe the animal goes and eats the apple. So you're wanting to keep it as social as possible. If you can get away from delivering unrelated, non-contextual, tangible reinforcers, we certainly want to do that. So rather than what is it, apple, good job saying apple, here's a token, or good job saying apple, here's your squishy ball. How can you extend that and make it more of an opportunity for learning and engagement by focusing on that reciprocity and that back and forth engagement? So yes, natural or connected reinforcement. When we do things like, what is it, apple, good job saying apple, here's a whatever, just feel like it frames it as such a task. Get this thing over with to get to the stuff I really like. What if we made all of the stuff you really like, or as much as possible? Some tasks really stink, like some of the activities of daily living. It's a little bit harder to make it exciting. But let's see, do we have time? I'm going to do a very, very quick one here. Laundry. So I had a teen working on a laundry program, folding, putting it away, and I was supposed to stand there. I was supposed to stand there and watch them do this, and it was just very unnatural and very uncomfortable. So I started to then fold some laundry too. So I got my own pile, they had their pile, and we're just doing it together. Much more natural, much more social. And then we started to have fun. I would roll up the socks because they didn't have the fine motor skills to do that yet. And I tossed them the socks across the room and they put them in the drawer. And the skill or the behavior of putting clothes in the drawer was previously one that was kind of difficult. There was a lot of like refusal behavior associated with that, but we gained some nice momentum. We kept it going, throw it, catch it. Catching it was fun. So they put it in, turn to catch another one. So there's like little changes that we can make, and we're still targeting the skills that we were intending to target, but we're targeting some extra ones too. All right, so I will leave you with that. I just want to say, so these are the global focus areas that we target in our social program. I just put them up in case anyone was interested. All right, Dr. Becca, do we have prizes? Prize winners?
We do have prizes. Now, since I cannot see everyone that's here, can you see everyone or no? Like, do you have something that says attendees? Like by your chat, does it say?
Yes, I can. Yes. Okay. I can see a list of attendees.
Okay, if you can copy and email me that list of attendees, I can take care of your spin, if that's helpful.
Do you know how to copy?
I would, so this is just me, so take it for what it's worth. I would copy it just like I would copy anything else. Like I would.
Yeah, it won't let me click and highlight it.
Shit.
I'm going to, that's okay. And I also have this computer that I don't know how to take screenshots on. Oh, you help me with that app. All right, I'm taking a picture.
Okay.
So what I have is, because I tried to cover a lot quickly. So what I have is an intro to play and play-based instruction course, like a mini course.
Which is fabulous, P.S. said from personal experience.
Oh, this is a new one. Yeah, so I pulled that stuff, and it's like a really intro, like let's get in the beginning, let's learn about play. So actually, brand new. And yeah, I just had a parent group go through it. So yes, I think it would be great. So we'll pick 3. We'll put the names of the attendees in the spinner and pick 3. And I'll send you access to the.
Oh my gosh. You know what? Look, let me just tell you how I know I do not know how to use a computer, because I just went to the wheel from the other week and everyone's names are still in there. I have no doubt that our IT person is like throwing up at the thought of me using the same everything for everything.
That's okay. Do you want to send it? Yeah, we'll just send an email after. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, I can send an email after. And actually, I just got it. So if you can give me just a couple seconds, I'm going to stop the recording though, because we're about done, right?
Yes. No, I'm all set.
Okay,
yeah, just
so let me
thank
stop
you. That
the
was
recording so people don't have to just listen to me